Part 20. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 191. Chapter 191. What a great thing! Fan Kinjao squeezed his hand under the quilt and nodded while meeting Bailey Fengming's gaze. She cannot violate the Hua family's century-old motto and engage in illicit treason. But no one stipulates that she cannot go along with the situation and frame the situation. For her, everything that stands in front of her is an enemy. It's even more of a dead person. Fan Zhao, who has the best martial arts around you, is in Luyi right now. Even if you want to buy someone on the black market to send a message, it will probably take 5 days at the earliest, but if I send it, it will only take 2 days to deliver it. Bailey Fengming Chen met her eyes and was completely helping her analyze the pros and cons. Fan Kinjao pressed his beautiful eyebrows and said, Bailey Fengming, you should know what the news I want to convey means. Bailey Fengming didn't lie, so what if I knew? Sure enough, he still calculated it. Fan Kinjao clenched his hands under the quilt even tighter. Aren't you afraid of being accused of murdering a murderer? Bailey Fengming glanced at Shiren. Why are you afraid? Bailey Fengming, what do you want? If he really intervened in this matter, then for him, he took the initiative to hand the handle into her hands. Even though they are allies, who can count on the day they will fly apart when disaster strikes? Besides, he has his own way to sit on that chair, and killing is just the most troublesome one for him. Bailey Fengming raised her hand again, wiping away the tears in the corners of her eyes, and her voice became gentler. You. Last time, he missed the chance to catch her. This time, nothing is more important than her. Fan Kinjao dodged Bailey Fengming's gaze, stood up and walked behind the desk. According to her regulations, although it is dispensable for Bailey Fengming, it is better than nothing. So Fan Kinjao is not willing, let alone intends, to believe Bailey Fengming's words. The death in her previous life was enough for her to understand that there is nothing else before interests. Emotions are just a way to tie up interests. But when handing the letter to Bailey Fengming, Fan Kinjao spoke again. It's not too late to regret it now. It will take 3 days at the fastest for the news to arrive in Luyi, so take a good rest. Bailey Fengming gently covered her body with the quilt and stood up. Xiaoxian stood in the dark night, his figure completely hidden by the shadows of the surrounding trees. A cool breeze blew by. When the wind stopped, Bailey Fengming was already standing beside Xiaoxian. Bailey Fengming silently handed the envelope in his arms to Xiaoxian without any hesitation from beginning to end. Xiaoxian took the envelope and asked, Your Highness, do you need to report the capture of His Majesty the Seventh Prince? Bailey Fengming glanced at the dark figures still hiding around the mansion in the western suburbs, and said in a soft but cool voice, Stop it. Xiaoxian was stunned for a moment, then nodded immediately, Yes. The mansion in the western suburbs. Fan Kinjao looked at Bailey Fengming who disappeared outside the window lattice, and suddenly thought of Bailey Rongs who was banned. If Bailey Rongs knew that Bailey Fengming's martial arts was so advanced, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood on the spot. Knock knock knock, knock knock knock. The rapid knocking on the door confused all the thoughts in Fan Kinjao's heart. The cold wind outside the window is still howling. When Fan Kinjao came to his senses, he saw Ninggan's face full of joy and said, Miss, someone from the Lu family is here. They say they are coming to propose marriage, and they want to marry the second young lady to the second young master of the Lu family. Fan Kinjao, who didn't know that Xinying had gone to the Lu family with a smile, just looked out the window and asked, What time is it now? Ninggan said softly, It has just passed Haishi. Go to the main hall, Fan Kinjao said and got up from the bed. No matter how the Lu family fell in love with the smiling face, there was no rule about saying goodbye in the middle of the night. Fan Kinjao walked out of the courtyard wrapped in a big cloak. This was when he learned from Ninggan that Xinying and Xiao Yan went to Lu's house today. They braved the cold wind all the way to the main hall. As soon as they entered the courtyard, I heard the laughter and laughter in the main hall at this moment. The person standing in the main hall talking at this time was the steward next to the Lu family's eldest wife, Zheng Zheng. I really didn't expect that the second young lady of the Hua family and the second young master of our family would be so matched. It is a match made in heaven. Our family madam also looked at the two little sweethearts and couldn't bear to separate them, so that's why she asked me to come to Hua's house to show off. Hua Yuelian was stunned when she heard this. What does Aunt Zheng mean by this? Aunt Zheng beamed happily. Although a normal engagement is a formal ceremony, our wife is kind-hearted and knows that it is not easy for the Hua family now, so she thought of fostering the second young lady with our Lu family. Of course, there will be no shortage of details in the departure process. When the second young lady gets her hair, our Lu family will definitely come back to give the Hua family a betrothal gift. By then, the Hua family can have any kind of grand wedding. After hearing this, the third daughter-in-law Pihan faked a smile and said, with such a smile, doesn't it mean that she has become the child bride of the Lu family? Hua Yuelian hesitated after hearing this. Although it is a good thing that a smile can find a good family, the status of a child bride is not high in her husband's family. Besides, her second brother is still on the battlefield right now, so she is afraid that she will not be able to make the decision for Xiao Yan. Mother Zheng looked at the Hua family's hesitation and glanced at the eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Tink, who was standing aside. When the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei saw her, she stood up and walked to Hua Yuelian's side and persuaded her earnestly, I know my sister-in-law cares about the little girls in the house, but the Lu family is a very rare family member. Xinying and Lu, the matter of the young master of our family has also been decided. Xinying will marry to the Lu family next month. Are you afraid that no one will take care of Xiao Yan? The second daughter-in-law Chen Yu, who has always been ready to make a move, lit up after hearing this. Sister-in-law, you mean that Xinying will also marry into the Lu family? The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei nodded proudly. That's because I heard that the wife of the Lu family likes our Xinying very much. As she spoke, she walked to the side of her second daughter-in-law Chen Yu. It would be great if the two sisters could take care of each other in the same mansion from now on. That's something many people can't ask for. The second daughter-in-law, Chen Yu, has always wanted her daughter to marry into a good family, so that she would no longer have to work hard. Now that he heard that Xinying was also going to marry into the Lu family, she immediately looked at Hua Yulian and said, Sister-in-law, I think this is okay. Even if you live in the Lu family temporarily, then you can live there. I will treat her first got married. Hua Yulian saw that her second sister-in-law nodded, and she couldn't stop her. This is just to trouble Aunt Zheng. I have to take care of my two nieces in the future. Hearing this, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Mammy Zheng smiled smoothly, look what you said, the Lu family and the Hua family will be in-laws from now on. Although our Lu family cannot compare with the Hua family in the past, we are still a big family in the main city. He came to the house in the middle of the night and talked nonsense, but in fact he was holding my daughter from the Hua family and refused to let her go. Such a robbery was done in the name of protection. How can the Lu family be considered a big family? A cold voice interrupted what Grandma Zheng had not finished saying. Fan Qinjiao walked in the door accompanied by Ninggan. His eyes that had just cried were full of sharpness. Aunt Zheng was stunned when she looked at Fan Qinjiao. Knowing the name of this young lady outside the Hua family, she cleverly avoided Fan Qinjiao's gaze. She just looked at Hua Yuelian beside her and said, it's settled. Come on, I will go back first, and the Lu family will definitely send someone to celebrate the engagement ceremony tomorrow. Mother Zheng was so blessed that she hurried to the door. As soon as the engagement is made, everything is settled. At that time, no matter how difficult the young lady of the Hua family is, she will only be a mute eating yellow lotus. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 192. Chapter 192, Catch a thief and see the stolen goods, kill a person and see the injury. Mother Zhang thought so, and her steps became faster. But just when she was about to cross the threshold, Fan Qingjiao's voice sounded again, Ninggan. Ninggan immediately raised her chest and stepped forward, blocking her in front of Grandma Zheng. Mother Zheng looked at the person standing in front of her, and her face was not good looking. What does Miss Huajiawai mean? I, the Lu family, came to propose marriage with good intentions. Is this how the Hua family treats each other with courtesy? Fan Qingjiao looked sideways, and there seemed to be a flash of light in his eyes. What the Lu family thinks has nothing to do with me, but I can't turn a blind eye to holding my sister captive like this and not letting her go. It's ridiculous. How could I, the Lu family, do such a ridiculous thing? In this case, I will go with my grandma to pick up my sister right now. Mother Zheng. This young lady from the Hua family has a knife in her mouth? Otherwise, why would you be so aggressive? Fan Qingjiao saw the flash of panic that flashed quickly in Nanny Zheng's eyes, and her heart tightened. She was just surprised when she first heard about it, so she kept trying it from the moment she entered the door. Did not expect. There is really a scam in this. Aunt Zheng suppressed her guilty conscience and put on a straight face. Our eldest lady really likes the eldest and second young ladies of the Hua family, so she left them in the house. The young lady outside the Hua family wants to bring them back so much, but I don't agree with this marriage, so I, the Lu family, will not force it. Fan Qingjiao's black eyes were filled with a chill that penetrated his bones. It's so good, my Hua family doesn't want to climb high. Mother Zheng's heart trembled when she heard this. Do not eat soft or hard food. The oil and salt are not allowed to enter. Seeing Fan Qingjiao still staring straight at her, Grandma Zheng felt even weaker. When she thought about the deeds of this young lady from the Hua family that spread throughout the main city, her heart was beating even more. In desperation, he had no choice but to wink at the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei secretly. If the person is really taken back, no one will have an easy time. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei knew that she had no room to speak in front of Fan Qingjiao, so she just squeezed Hua Yuelian's hand and said with an aggrieved face, Sister-in-law, I know that Xiao Qingjiao has always been prejudiced against me, but I know what I did was wrong in the past, but now I also want to help the government do something good. If I miss a good family like the Lu family, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find another one. Hua Yuelian sincerely hopes that the little girls at home will find a good home. Uier, I know you have a good relationship with Xiao Yan, but even if you want to meet, you are not in a hurry, and you can't wait until the marriage is settled before going. Too late. The second daughter-in-law Chenyu stood up and angrily said, Fan Qingjiao, what do you mean? Of course you are not in a hurry when you are not old enough to get married. But how can our smiles be delayed like yours? How do you feel at ease? Just don't want to see our smiles. When the third daughter-in-law Pihan and the fourth daughter-in-law Yafu saw this, they quickly tried to persuade her. Second sister-in-law, you are going too far. Second sister-in-law, Xiao Qingjiao has been busy with the house, how could you hurt her heart like this? I hurt her heart? She couldn't see our beautiful smiles first, and if she could, she would never marry again. Then I believed that she was really doing it for the good of the Hua family. The second daughter-in-law, Chan Yu, had already felt sorry for her daughter. He looks so busy. If he can really have a good destination, why bother working so hard? Second sister-in-law, Hua Yuelian's face turned cold. No one can deny or question Yu Yaer's thoughts about the Hua family. The second daughter-in-law, Chan Yu, also knew that what she said was too much. She was so aggrieved and angry that she burst into tears. The third daughter-in-law Pihan and the fourth daughter-in-law Yafu hurriedly tried to persuade me. Hua Yuelian looked at Fan Qingjiao helplessly and angrily, Yu Yaer, why don't you understand my thoughts? Fan Qingjiao could clearly see that the eldest sister-in-law and Aunt Zheng were poking at each other, but she knew that it would not help her to continue to stand here and it would be a waste of time. Anyway, she already knew everything she wanted to know. The rest don't need anyone else. In this way, she lowered her head and said apologetically, I was reckless today, so I will go back and think about my mistakes behind closed doors. Hua Yuelian looked at her daughters leaving back and suddenly realized that she had lost weight again. Her heart trembled with distress, but in the end she said nothing. When the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei saw this, she looked at Nanny Zheng and smiled proudly. That little Fan Qinjiao is nothing more than a yellow-haired girl, so what is there to be afraid of? Mammy Zheng breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that the matter had settled, she didn't stay any longer and hurried out of the western suburbs mansion with a false smile on her face. With a stick of incense, Grandma Zheng got off the carriage and entered the Lu family. Hurrying to report the good news to the eldest wife of the Lu family, she saw that it was the carriage parked in the alley opposite. Fan Qinjiao in the carriage stared at Lu Mansion, which was still brightly lit in the middle of the night, with his sharp gaze like a fire. Ningguan, who was standing by the car window, asked impatiently, Miss, are we going to follow? Fan Qinjiao shook his head. Catch a thief and see the stolen goods, kill a person and see the injury. Since the Lu family wants to hide their smile so much, they definitely don't want the Lu family to be embarrassed. And if the Lu family wants to clear their name, they must destroy their evidence. Fan Qinjiao narrowed his eyes slightly and warned, Ningguan, count the time. After burning incense, go back to the mansion in the western suburbs and say that I came to the Lu family to cause trouble. Ningguan was shocked, Miss, how can anyone put a basin of on themselves? Fan Qinjiao smiled coldly, the fire at the city gate will affect the fish in the pond. Only if I am not good, the Lu family will be in worse condition. At this time, the eldest lady of the Lu family was really relieved after listening to Grandma Zheng's report. She was scared to death whenever something happened. Has the Hua family really agreed to the engagement? Aunt Zheng said with a sneer, don't worry, madam, the Hua family now is no better than before. You haven't seen the women in the Hua family. When I heard that the two young ladies are going to stay in the Lu family, thank God they are all going to pay homage to their ancestors. The eldest daughter of the Lu family heard this and said, being able to marry our Lu family is a blessing that the Hua family will never get in their lifetimes. The second young lady of the Lu family also smiled and said, what the eldest sister is saying is that there is no need for my mother to panic. It's not a big deal. For the Hua family who even rents out the shop, she should be grateful our Lu family has given them one less person to grab their jobs. Mrs. Lu glanced helplessly at the two daughters in front of her, but she didn't have the heart to blame them. She stabilized her mind, got up and walked towards the back room, but she turned her back to the bed and didn't want to take another look. She just told the few servants in front of her, hurry and take the person out and find a place with a pond place, remember to throw it as far away as possible. The boys nodded, turned around and walked to the bed. Mrs. Lu had been watching the servants walk out of the door. Then she put on her usual smile, got up and walked to Xinying, who had been sitting silently aside. Xinying, you have to swallow what happens tonight, Mrs. Lu coaxed. Xinying glanced indifferently at the servants who had walked out of the yard, are you going to send someone to marry me tomorrow? Mrs. Lu smiled and nodded, that's natural. We will be a family from now on. As for today's matters. Xinying snorted indifferently, it's none of my business, she deserves it the most. Mrs. Lu stood up and walked out of the main hall with the support of Aunt Zheng. When the two young ladies from the Lu family saw this, they also followed. As a result, just when they were about to walk out of the yard, they saw a boy who had left earlier running back in a hurry. He said with panic on his face, no, it's not good. The door, something happened. Mrs. Lu's heart trembled and she almost fell to the ground. Mother Zheng quickly helped Mrs. Lu steady, and then asked, who dares to make trouble at the door of Lu's house? Just kick him out. The boy lowered his head and trembled all over. Come here, someone said that she is a girl from outside the Hua family. You, what did you say? This time, it was Grandma Zheng's turn and she almost fell to the ground. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 193. Chapter 193 A Loud Slap. Mother Zheng supported Mrs. Lu and walked quickly to the door of the house, where she saw the lights on the street opposite the house. The rows of lanterns and torches lit up half of the sky, almost blinding their eyes. Seeing this, Aunt Zheng hurriedly stepped forward to stop her, but she asked Fan Qinjiao, who was standing at the foot of the steps, why did the Hua family agree to get engaged, but the lady outside the Hua family came to make trouble. Fan Qinjiao had a sullen face and cold black eyes. He was completely oblivious to what Grandma Zheng said. He just stared at the object being carried by the servant and ordered Grandma Su, open it. Aunt Zheng hurriedly said, since the Hua family is engaged, the second young lady of the Hua family is a member of my Lu family. If the outsider of the Hua family makes such a fuss about my Lu family, she is not afraid that the people in the main city will talk about Hua if word spreads Miss Huajia doesn't know the etiquette? Could it be that Miss Huajia has an unmarried daughter? Fan Qinjiao sneered when he heard this. Second sister came to Lu's house in a hurry. I was worried and wanted to send some emergency things. If Aunt Zheng thinks that I am making trouble, she might as well send my second sister to her now. Call me out and I'll hand over my stuff and leave. Mother Zheng's eyes dodge, her liver and gallbladder are trembling with weakness. Now that the second young lady from the Hua family is covered under a black cloth, where can she find another second young lady from the Hua family? Fan Qinjiao saw the guilty look on Nanny Zheng's face, and her heart tightened to the limit. That's all I'm afraid of. Looking towards the shelf covered with black cloth again, Fan Qinjiao instantly retracted his smile and said sharply again, Mother Su. The old slave is here. Lift it for me. Yes. Su Yan hardly hit Zheng Yan, who was blocking himself in front of him. The waiter on the steps saw Nanny Su rushing towards her, and subconsciously reached out to push her. As a result, they just raised their hands when they saw Fan Zhao's men coming over. Looking at the ferocious faces, the boys trembled all over. Let alone taking action, even breathing is difficult. Nanny Su quickly walked around behind the boy and lifted up the black cloth covering the shelf. In an instant, Xiao Yan's bloodless face came into everyone's sight. At this moment, the smiling face lying on the broken wooden shelf was covered in water, her hair was soaked, her eyes were closed, her lips were white, and there was a large pool of blood on her forehead. The weather in the first month was so cold and windy that Smiley's body was already covered with layers of frost. Seeing this, the eldest lady of the Lu family felt that her feet were weak. If it were not for the support of the maid beside her, she would have collapsed to the ground. Fan Qinjiao walked up the steps with a few strides, untied his cloak and gathered it around Smiley's body. The cold breath instantly surged throughout his body. Looking at the smiling face that was only breathing out but not taking in, Fan Qinjiao's black eyes flashed with a red light. That is the fire that bursts out of the chest with uncontrollable anger. Although she had already seen the fishiness in it, she never expected that the Lu family would be so bold. If she hadn't been stuck here tonight, I'm afraid the Lu family would have abandoned their bodies and wiped out all traces. There was a sudden commotion behind him. It was Hua Yuelian and several daughters-in-law of the Hua family who chased after Ninggan's report. But the few people who originally wanted to accuse Fan Qinjiao were stunned when they saw the smiling face. Didn't you say that the second young lady is here to enjoy the blessing? Why is it that your life is almost gone? The eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Wei, staggered on her feet and felt as if the world was spinning in front of her eyes. She just heard that Aunt Zheng said that Xiao Yan was slightly injured when she was messing around with some ladies in the house, so she didn't pay much attention to it, especially after knowing that the Lu family wanted to get engaged to Xinying. Following Grandma Zheng in acting. Yes, but now. This is a slight injury. This is called being out of the way. The second daughter-in-law, Chen Yu, almost fainted. She threw herself on the shelf and held Xiao Yan tightly in her arms. Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, what's wrong with you? The fourth daughter-in-law Yafu also had red eyes. Xiao Qinjiao, what happened? Fan Qinjiao turned to look at Mrs. Lu on the steps. Her cold voice seemed cold and cold. I also want to ask Mrs. Lu, why my second sister is like this. Mrs. Lu on the steps looked at the orphaned and widowed mother of the Hua family, and she had regained her previous calmness. If it was the Hua family in the past, they were indeed qualified to run rampant in the main city, and they were even more qualified to challenge them. But now the Hua family has long been deserted. Although the man of the Hua family is going to Huaishang to commit crimes and perform meritorious services, who can say for sure that he may not be able to come back? At any rate, the Lu family also eats royal food, so the Lu family is not afraid of a down-and-out flower family. Mrs. Lu, who no longer had any fear, stroked her collar grandly, and then said again, the second young lady of the Hua family is playful by nature, and she likes the rockery of my Lu family so much that she doesn't want to climb it on the way up. Aunt Zheng turned a deaf ear to her repeated attempts to stop the second lady of the Hua family, but the Black Mountain was slippery that day, and the second lady of the Hua family didn't step firmly and fell into the pond. What a clear shirk! Hua Yulian tasted Madame Lu's tone, her sullen eyes full of helplessness towards reality. It's true that everyone has pushed down the wall, and now everyone can step on the Hua family. The third daughter-in-law Pihan and the fourth daughter-in-law Yafu felt their chests heaving with anger after hearing this. The second daughter-in-law, Chen Yu, looked at her unconscious daughter in front of her, and when she heard Mrs. Lu's irrelevant words, she wanted to have someone slap Mrs. Lu's face. Rustling, rustling. The sound of footsteps sounded gently. The Hua family looked sideways in surprise when they saw Fan Qinjiao walking up the steps without saying a word. Mrs. Lu's wife looked at Fan Qinjiao standing in front of her, her eyes full of impatience, and she said in an unkind tone, if the Hua family knows what they are doing, the Lu family, are not ungrateful people. I don't care about Hua whether the second lady of the family is safe or not, she is willing to continue to settle on this marriage. Snap dash. The rest of the words were all lost in the crisp sound. Looking at Mrs. Lu's face, which was so arrogant just now, the right side of her face suddenly became red and swollen. Look again at Fan Qinjiao's arm that was raised in the air and has not yet fallen down. At this moment, the door of Lu's house was completely silent. The boy at the door of Lu's house. The daughters-in-law of the Hua family. Deserved it? Relieve anger. Why didn't I just beat you to death? Mrs. Lu family covered half of her face, her eyes were already blazing with fire. I, the master of the Lu family, am an imperial physician working in the palace. The Hua family is so brave that I dare to beat the wife of the imperial official in public. Fan Qinjiao smiled after hearing this. Mrs. Lu's family seems to have forgotten my other identity. Mrs. Lu was stunned, suppressing her anger and frowning. What? The Lord of Qingping County, the Lord of Heshuo County. Mrs. Lu's family only felt like a blow to the head, and her eyes were covered with darkness. The Lord of Qingping County. Princess Heshuo. Yeah, how come she just forgot about the other two identities that surround this young lady from the Hua family? The Lu family is just a scholarly family in the main city, and even a county head would be embarrassed to say. Let alone the princess. Snapped. Just when Mrs. Lu was thinking about how to get out of her current predicament, she received a second slap on the left cheek. Everyone was shocked, but no one dared to say another word. Even Aunt Zhen was standing aside tremblingly, not even daring to raise her head. Fan Qingjiao's eyes were dark and fierce. The murderous intent in his eyes was as strong as the slap he swung. Mrs. Lu's eyes were full of anger, and she was forced to fight back, but when she thought of Fan Qingjiao's identity, she could only endure it. For a moment, Mrs. Lu gnashed her teeth angrily. She did not dare to disobey the county boss, but her father was an official of the imperial court. Mrs. Lu's wife glared at Fan Qingjiao fiercely, just waiting for Fan Qingjiao to get out of the house after the beating so that she could cry out her grievances in front of her master. In this case, let alone the matter of the second young lady of the Hua family, even this Fan Qingjiao would not be able to have an easy time. However, Mrs. Lu's wife thought wrongly. Under her glare, Fan Qingjiao raised his hand again. Mrs. Lu. Not finished yet? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 194. Chapter 194 Endless. When Fan Qingjiao thought of the smiling face still lying on the wooden frame, he wanted to cut Mrs. Lu alive. So that when facing Mrs. Lu's stunned gaze, Fan Qingjiao slapped the old face that was heavily rouged. Snapped. You. Snapped. I. Snapped. Mrs. Lu. This is to beat her to death. Spare my life, County Lord, please spare your life, Lord Princess, please spare your life. Mrs. Lu's face was as red and swollen as a pig's head, her legs were weak and she knelt on the ground. But it's all a misunderstanding. I'm not worried about my smile. That's why I plan to send someone to the hospital to find a doctor. The third daughter-in-law Pihan laughed when she heard this. The Lu family's wife is really frugal. She even uses a wooden frame instead of a carriage to see the doctor, but will the Lu family not be able to afford food? Mrs. Lu was so choked that she couldn't even speak. The daughters-in-law of the Hua family felt relieved when they looked at Mrs. Lu's old face that was purple from being whipped. Seeing that her wife had been beaten to half her life, Aunt Zheng hurriedly walked over with a smile on her face. Our Lu family really wants to marry the Hua family, and we ask the Hua family to believe that our Lu family will take care of it. Second Miss Zhou Quan, if the Hua family really takes the person back like this, wouldn't it also delay the marriage between the two families? This statement is clear. If the Hua family takes the person back, the marriage will probably be. The fourth daughter-in-law Yafu walked up to the second daughter-in-law Chun Yu and said, "Second sister-in-law, your smile is in danger now. You have to make an idea quickly whether you should stay in the Lu family or take the person back for treatment." The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, has always been the least independent among the sisters-in-law. Looking at her daughter like this now, her mind was completely blank. How could she have any ideas? Fan Qingjiao said directly, "Mother Su, Ninggan, take the second sister back." Mrs. Lu's eyes widened as she slumped on the ground, thinking she heard something wrong. It's okay if Fan Qingjiao doesn't understand human language. Are the people in the Hua family all crazy and really want to break up with the Lu family? How dare Huajia? The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei, who had been silent for the whole time, hurriedly walked to the side of the second daughter-in-law Chun Yu and persuaded her, "Second brothers and sisters, it is really difficult to find a family like the Lu family even with a lantern, otherwise we will." If her smile is taken away, wouldn't her daughter's marriage also fall through? Unexpectedly, the second daughter-in-law Chun Yu just threw away the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei's hand. "I believe Xiao Qingjiao, let's go back home now." Hua Yuelian glanced at her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei coldly, then turned and left. She wanted Xiao Yan to marry into a good family, but she was not so compromised. Otherwise, how could she have the face to explain to her brothers? Mammy Zheng hurriedly walked to Mrs. Lu's side, helped her up and whispered, "Since the Hua family doesn't know what's going on, forget it. Madam was wronged about what happened today, but fortunately everything is over. Fan Kinjao, who was about to walk to the carriage, frowned when he heard this. Past. The Lu family's thinking is too simple. Ningan. Miss. Report to the official. Yes. At the door of the Lu family, Mrs. Lu, who had just been helped up by Granny Zheng, almost fell to the ground again. Hello, it's not over yet? The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei looked at Hua Yuelian's leaving figure and cursed secretly in her heart. Their daughters are not married, but my daughter is still married. I wonder if Mrs. Lu has time to talk about marriage in detail now. Ling Wei, the eldest daughter-in-law, walked to Mrs. Lu's side with a smile on her face. As for what just happened in the Hua family, it is none of their business. It's just that she can ignore it, but Mrs. Lu can't. Now when she saw the Hua family, Mrs. Lu's chest jumped. Still talking? What to talk about? Come here, send the eldest daughter of the Hua family out. Our small temple of the Lu family cannot afford the big Buddha of the Hua family, Mrs. Lu said, turned around and entered the house. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei still wanted to move forward, but was blocked by Aunt Zheng. If you are sensible, take the people away quickly, but I warn you to be stricter with your words. If what happened in the Lu family today is publicized, let alone the Lu family, it will be difficult for your daughter. People dare to marry. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Didn't you say that this incident happened because Xiao Yan accidentally fell into the pond? Is there something else hidden? The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei was just thinking when she saw Xinying reluctantly leaving the Lu family. She quickly grabbed her daughter's arm and said, "Tell me the truth, what happened?" The mansion in the western suburbs was brightly lit late at night. The smiling face lying on the bed has changed into clean clothes, but his face is still very white. Fan Kinjao carefully treated Xiao Yan, and the anger burning in his chest became even stronger. He drew in the chest, swelling in the back of the head, and dozens of abrasions all over the body. Even if she didn't see it with her own eyes, she could still imagine what kind of torture the second sister suffered. What a Lu family who eats people without spitting out their bones. What a Mrs. Lu with a human face and an animal heart. Several daughters-in-law and Hua Yuelian sat aside in silence. The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, felt guilty when she saw that Fan Kinjao had not had time to change his clothes since he walked in. He had been busy with her daughter. How confused must she be to be able to say such cruel words to Xiao Kinjao? Xiao Kinjao, the smile is hurt. The second daughter-in-law Chun Yu burst into tears before she could finish her words. Fan Kinjao stabilized his fluctuating mood, and when he turned around, he had returned to his former calm. Second sister-in-law, don't worry, the second sister is sleeping now because she choked on too much water. She will be able to wake up after a few days of rest of. The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, grabbed Fan Kinjao's hand and said, "Xiao Kinjao, it's all the fault of the second aunt. It's the second aunt who is confused today. It doesn't matter how you blame the second aunt. Don't blame yourself, stay." Fan Kinjao pursed his lips and smiled, his eyes firm and clear. Second sister-in-law doesn't want to make second sister so hard, so why don't I understand? If possible, I really hope that all the daughters of the Hua family can find a good home of their own. It's just that my second sister-in-law doesn't ask for anything, and it's not her turn for others to trample on my daughter from the Hua family. The third daughter-in-law, Pihan, burst out in pain when she heard this. Everyone wants their daughter to sit back and relax, but who wants to think about Xiao Kinjao's hard work? Thinking again about his daughter who is far away in Luyi, and everything that Xiao Kinjao is carrying in his heart. The third daughter-in-law Pihan's heart ached even more. Mu Yan blinked away the tears in her eyes, pulled her mother's sleeve and whispered softly, "If the third sister doesn't want to marry, I won't marry." The fourth daughter-in-law, Yafu, swallowed and nodded. The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, cried so much that her voice changed. She is confused, she is really confused. Hua Yulian looked at the veins on the back of her daughter's hands that had not completely subsided, and her eyes darkened. Considering Xiao Yan's current health, Fan Qinjiao decided to take care of Xiao Yan in his yard for the time being. This time, no one really had anything else to say. Perhaps in the hearts of all the Hua family's female relatives, Fan Qinjiao is the one who has truly become the head of the Hua family. After everyone walked out of the house, Hua Yuelian waved to her daughter, Uier, tell the truth to mother, how is your second sister's injury? Fan Qinjiao knew that his mother also knew medical skills, so he simply stopped hiding it. He suffered a serious head injury and fell into the water when he was unconscious. Now all the water is accumulated in the chest. She hid this matter because she didn't want her second aunt to blame herself even more for it. She was indeed sad and disappointed about what happened today, but it was not enough to make her give up on the Hua family. Since she decided to carry this family, she had to grit her teeth and hold on even if she was carrying a heavy load. Hua Yulian's pupils trembled and she looked at the bed in disbelief. She knew Yuye was hiding something, but she never expected it to be so serious. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 195. Chapter 195 is just right, she didn't finish thinking about it. But it can still be saved. Fan Qinjiao stared into her mother's eyes and nodded, it can be saved, but it's difficult. Hua Yuelian turned to look at Fan Qinjiao and said in a trembling voice, take good care of your second sister. This matter has nothing to do with your aunt and Xinying. Why do they want anything to happen to their own family? It was my mother's negligence that was at fault. If you believe it, the Lu family will personally apologize to your second uncle when he comes back. For the sake of the so-called reunion, my mother still indulged her eldest sister-in-law and Xinying. My mother's debt to the Hua family is deep-rooted, and it is not easy for my mother to make changes easily. But Fan Qinjiao is not in a hurry, she always lets the fox reveal its original tail and the hungry wolf his hidden fangs. As soon as Hua Yuelian left, Ninghan came to her young lady dejectedly. Miss, the Yamen just sent a message saying that only Grandma Zheng was arrested. Mother Su, who was walking over with tea, frowned and said, I really don't know how the government handles things. Why do they just arrest a grandma and settle such a big matter? Master Sun is just doing things impartially. Fan Qinjiao drank tea calmly, which was reasonable and expected. The Lu family is also a scholarly family in the main city. If such a shameful thing happens, it is normal to throw a slave into it and convict him. Ninghan gritted her teeth unwillingly, is this the end? Over. Fan Qinjiao took a sip of hot tea with a sharp gaze. Since the Lu family cares so much about appearance, how can they be willing to suffer such a loss? Just right, she didn't finish thinking about it. Mother Su, please quickly send Fan Zhao's men to the Lu family, and keep an eye on them secretly to ensure that you don't miss any signs of trouble. The Lu family has made such a big thing today. It is known that it would be impossible to see it without seeing it with his own eyes. According to the style of the Lu families today, he was afraid that those who would be fierce. Ninghan, please go out with me. Ninghan and Nanny Su nodded, then left the room and went to work separately. After burning a stick of incense, he followed Fan Qinjiao and got into the carriage. The prison of the governor's yamen in the main city was damp and dark, and rats and cockroaches were rampant. Mother Zheng sat slumped on the straw mat stained with blood, her heart ashes. When the master is in trouble, the slave will block the sword. This is the eternal principle. If you want to blame it, it's all the fault of the young lady from the Hua family. That's all. If she could really sell her life to save her children and grandchildren, she would admit it. Aunt Zheng is thinking that as long as you bear everything, your family will be protected. A familiar voice suddenly sounded, and Aunt Zheng thought she heard something wrong. It wasn't until she saw Fan Kinjao standing outside the cell that she glared in disgust and said, "Miss Wajia, why came to personally see the old slave off?" However, the old slave has a low status, but he can't bear such a generous gift from Miss Wajia. Why? Mama Zheng is devoted to the Lord. I respect such a loyal person. Aunt Zheng thought that as long as she resisted everything, the world would be peaceful, but it is a pity that the innocent young and old of Aunt Zheng's family also had to accompany Aunt Zheng. Gan Fan Kinjao untied his cloak to Ninggan and looked into the cell with a cold look. Mother Zheng's face turned blue. That's nonsense. If Miss Hua's family is trying to sow discord, please come back. Fan Kinjao took a deep look at Aunt Zheng and squeezed her hands under her sleeves. Ning Han said quickly, "The Lu family even went so far as to kill the maids in the house in order to hide the crime of framing our second young lady. Now that our young lady has grabbed the personal stolen goods of your Lu family, what else do you have to say?" Mother Zheng's expression suddenly changed. Fan Kinjao turned his head helplessly. "I know that this matter has nothing to do with Aunt Zheng. I wanted to save the lives of Aunt Zheng and her family. Since Aunt Zheng is so loyal, I can't say anything more. Ninggan, let's go." Yolo, really walking? There is no evidence, and the letter is female yellow. However, Fan Kinjao was not panicked. Aunt Zheng looked smart but was actually timid. Otherwise, she would not have been defrauded of Niduan so easily in the Hua family just now. Mother Zheng looked at Fan Kinjao's back. Her teeth were almost broken. In order to conceal the injury of the second daughter of the Hua family, Mrs. Lu's family indeed killed several people. If this matter is really exposed, her old life will not be enough to compensate, then her family will. How did Miss Wajia know about this kind of thing? But looking at the determination of Miss Wajia, it doesn't seem like she is cheating. Seeing that Fan Kinjao was really about to walk out of the prison but had no intention of looking back, Grandma Zheng finally closed her eyes and said, "Miss Wajia, please stay." Fan Kinjao stopped and turned around calmly. Mother Zheng seemed still worried, closed her eyes and asked, "If I tell you everything, is Miss Wajia really willing to protect my family?" Fan Kinjao nodded and smiled, his eyes pure, naturally. After hearing this, Grandma Zheng made up her mind and opened her eyes again. No matter what, she would never let anything happen to her family members. The first watch sounded and Fan Kinjao was released from prison. Sun Che, who had been waiting at the Yamen gate for a long time, breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Fan Kinjao. "Do you want me to take you back?" Fan Kinjao smiled and shook his head, then stepped out of the threshold and said, "Kinjao just asks Master Sun to be merciful when he interrogates Aunt Zheng tomorrow." Sun Che was stunned, but the Lu family. The Lu family deserved their punishment, but Aunt Zheng was just following orders. There were a lot of scandals in the various mansions. Who didn't push the slaves out to block the knife? Those slaves were sold to the master. That's true, but they are not obligated to die for the sins committed by their lord. Since Fan Kinjao agreed to Grandma Zheng, he must keep his promise. Sun Che was stunned for a moment, looking at the beautiful little face under the lantern. His eyes felt a little hot. How great it would be if everyone in the main city could have such a benevolent and righteous heart. Seeing Fan Kinjao getting into the carriage with the help of Ning Han, Sun Che opened his mouth belatedly. But before he could speak, Fan Kinjao smiled and said, "I will say hello to my mother on behalf of Uncle Sunday." Sun Che. Is it really that obvious? Fan Kinjao looked through the car window at Sun Che, who was always standing at the door of the Yamen, and suddenly thought of his mother. After I finish taking care of my uncles, it's really time to find a good home for my mother. Outside the carriage, Ning Han drove the carriage and just turned around the alley in the western suburbs when she saw her daughter-in-law Ling Wei pulling Xinying into the mansion. As soon as she entered the door, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei couldn't help complaining, "How can you be so reckless? That smiling face likes to argue and argue. Why are you joining in the fun?" Xinying muttered nonchalantly, "Who told her to keep talking to that little Fan Kinjao?" The two young ladies from the Lu family just mocked Fan Kinjao, and she rushed over like a mad dog. She got into a fight with someone, and she deserves to be beaten as a punching bag by the two sisters from the Lu family. Then you can take advantage of her smile and push her into the pond. The eldest daughter-in-law never expected that this matter would actually be related to her daughter. Thinking of Fan Kinjao's eyes covered with frost and cold wind blowing at the door of Lu's house today, her scalp went numb. After shivering for a long time, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei pressed her daughter's shoulder and warned, "The Lu family will not sit idly by and ignore this matter. You have the right to treat it as if it has nothing to do with you. If anyone asks you, just insist that it is the smiling face yourself. Did you hear that he fell into the pond?" Xinying nodded indifferently, "I understand." The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei was right. The Lu family couldn't let things fester, so when Mrs. Lu family returned to the house, she called her two daughters in front of her. Faced with their worried mother, the two young ladies of the Lu family didn't care at all. Mother Zheng has already been imprisoned for ancient crimes, so why should mother be so panicked? Besides, the person was indeed snatched at the door of our house, but now she is at Hua's house. Even if something really happens, she will tell us what is the relationship. Eldest sister is right, no matter what the Hua family says, as long as we don't admit it, it's fine. Mrs. Lu's wife nodded gently after listening to her two daughters' words. The second young lady of the Hua family was indeed unconscious when she was carried away, but no one checked her injuries. Even if the second young lady of the Hua family is dead, the Lu family can still discern three principles. Just thinking about Fan Kinjao's domineering appearance today made Mrs. Lu's chest hurt with anger. Clenched her teeth, Madame Lu's family just said, "Hello, here comes someone." End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 196. Chapter 196, He Deserves It. That night, a few boys quietly walked out of Lu's house. Early the next morning, the people in the capital somehow knew what happened at the gate of Lu's house last night. This incident has become a topic of conversation among the people after dinner. I heard that the daughter-in-law of the Hua family blocked the door yesterday, so I couldn't help but beat Mrs. Lu's family. How could there be no reason? It seems that the Lu family wanted to marry the Hua family, and the Hua family didn't do it, so they caused trouble. I even heard that the Hua family is unreasonable. Taking advantage of the fact that the Hua family men are now committing crimes and making meritorious services in Hua, I thought that the Hua family had returned to its former glory. The second young lady of the Hua family even rushed into the Lu family and followed. There was a conflict with the mother-in-law, and she fell into the pond and fell unconscious, and asked the government to take the woman away. The rumors in the main city have become more and more intense, and the female members of the Hua family have also received sarcastic remarks from the people one after another. Today, the second daughter-in-law Chun Yu, who went out to Huguo Temple to pray for her daughter, is even pointed at by the people, as if it seemed like the Hua family had done something hugely wrong. The second daughter-in-law, Chun Yu, fell ill when she came back. She was so depressed that she vomited several mouthfuls of blood. The third daughter-in-law Pihan was unwilling to suffer, so she took the fourth daughter-in-law Yafu and went straight to the Lu family. When Hua Yuelian heard the news, she quickly got up and came to the south courtyard of the mansion. At this time, Fan Kinjao was listening to the report from Fan Zhao's men in the south courtyard. Master's calculation is correct. Yesterday at 2 o'clock in the morning, a few boys carried the corpses out of the house secretly. The subordinates followed them all the way outside the city and saw with their own eyes that the boys threw the corpses into mass graves. Fan Kinjao told him calmly, bring those corpses back to the Lu family. If anyone asks, just tell them to return them to their original owners. Fan Zhao's men nodded and took the order to leave. Ning'an was sweating profusely and lifted the curtain. Miss, everything has been done. Now we are heading to Lu's house. Before Fan Qinjiao could say anything, he saw Hua Yuelian enter the door with an anxious expression. Yu Ya, your third aunt took your fourth aunt to the Lu family. They listen to you the most. You should find someone to call them back. Hua Yuelian held her daughter's hand tightly. Fan Qinjiao did not expect such a thing to happen and was stunned. However, facing her mother's worried eyes, when she came back to her senses, she said calmly, the Lu family will be very lively today, so it would be a good idea to let the aunties pour a bucket of oil. In the blink of an eye, Fan Qinjiao looked at the sleeping Smile on the bed with his chest covered with silver needles, but he said to Ning'an, please go to the gate of Lu's house to watch the scene with your eldest aunt and eldest sister play. Don't be afraid, second sister, you will be safe with me. Second sister, don't worry, as long as I'm here, no matter who deceives you, I will get it back for you twice as much. The entrance to the Lu family is really busy at the moment. The corpses of several maids who had left and returned were piled under the steps, which attracted the attention of the people around them. Mrs. Lu, who came after hearing the news, almost rolled down the steps when she looked at the dead bodies. Where did these dead people come from? Send these corpses away before someone comes. Mrs. Lu's face was white and she shouted to the servants in the house. How guilty she is now is how loud her voice is. She knew better than anyone how these people died, and she had to destroy the bodies at this time. But before the young men from the Lu family could rush down and take away the corpses, they saw a commotion from the crowd. Immediately afterwards, several elderly men and women rushed out of the crowd and pounced on the corpses. Tweety, you are really my Tweety. Lu Catkins, my Catkins are also there. It's all my mother's fault. I shouldn't have sold you into the Lu family. We only thought that the Lu family was a big family and their mansion must be clean, but we didn't expect that they would eat people without spitting out their bones. The cries and howls of men and women mingled together, ringing into the sky at the door of the Lu family. Mrs. Lu. It's really a slap in the face. When the people around him saw this, they all looked at Mrs. Lu on the steps. If they remember correctly, the wife of the Lu family just said that she did not recognize these corpses. Mrs. Lu's wife was seen with thorns on her back, and her limbs were cold and cold. She never expected that the parents of these servants would rush to the door of the Lu family. Who is it? Who wants to frame my Lu family? So bold, so bold. I, the master of the Lu family, am the imperial physician in the palace. When Mrs. Lu family said this, she obviously lacked confidence, but now, no matter how guilty she is, she can never admit that this matter has anything to do with the Lu family. Mrs. Lu's wife can even bite her back, so what else can't she do? The fourth daughter-in-law Yafu, who had just arrived, couldn't stand Mrs. Lu's hypocritical face, so she just walked out of the crowd. Mrs. Lu. Another blow to the head. I, the second young lady of the Hua family, passed out for no reason in your Lu family. Even now, the situation has not been turned around. Madame Lu family not only did not apologize, she even sent people to confuse right and wrong in the main city. So I would like to ask Lu personally. Madam, the second daughter of the Hua family is unconscious, who is right and who is wrong? Madame Lu's wife looked at her fourth daughter-in-law Yafu and felt a splitting headache. She deliberately let people spread rumors, but she didn't expect the Hua family to be so bold as to rush to the door and cause trouble. Looking at the people surrounding him, Mrs. Lu could only grit her teeth and say with a smile, whatever is going on is what is going on. I believe the people in the capital know it well. Such vague words made Pihan yell, I know your uncle's legs. Mrs. Lu. What are the qualities of the Hua family? Third daughter-in-law Pihan. When did you still have the nerve to talk to me about your quality? I didn't go up and tear you apart with my hands, that's my greatest quality. When the people looked at this situation and thought of the two daughters-in-law of the Hua family, they figured it out no matter how confused they were. The second young lady of the Hua family was injured and unconscious for no reason yesterday at the Lu family. Today, the body of a maid from the Lu family appeared at the door of the Lu family. This is obviously because the Lu family did something dirty and killed her. It's hard for the Lu family to spread the news today that the Hua family's mistress beat his wife. Now it seems that the attack is simply too light. The sound of neat footsteps suddenly sounded from far to near. Soon, Sun Che, dressed in official uniforms, and his government servants gathered around the entrance of the Lu family's residence. The madam of the Lu family was desperate. She quickly looked at Sun Che and shouted, "Sir, help me, my lord, help me. The people from the Hua family killed someone and want to frame it on my Lu family. Please tell me the truth." Sun Che looked at the miserable Lu family's wife coldly, but he was not moved at all. But he waved his hand and said to the officials behind him, "Come here, arrest Mrs. Lu." The government officials followed the order and pushed Madame Lu to the ground. Mrs. Lu family lay on the cold ground, still stalking. "You are a flower family. In order to frame my Lu family, you even bribed the governor's office. Just wait for me. I, the master of the Lu family, will definitely not do this. Just sit back and ignore it." The third daughter-in-law is very angry and wants to come forward to argue. Sun Che was the first to speak. Yesterday evening, the two young ladies of the Lu family had a conflict with the second young lady of the Hua family, and even beat the second young lady of the Hua family. Mrs. Lu's wife was afraid that this matter would be publicized, so she ordered the 5 maids present to be silenced. Still unwilling to repent, she still wanted to hide the Hua family in the name of engagement, and tried to destroy the body last night. This confession was made by the Lu family's Aunt Zheng herself. What else can Mrs. Lu's family say? Mrs. Lu's family was stunned. She wanted to die, but she didn't expect that Aunt Zheng would really dare to recruit her. Seeing this, Sun Che said to the government servant behind him, "Go and take away the two young ladies from the Lu family." Yes. At this moment, the two young ladies of the Lu family were shaking like chaff. Seeing the government servant striding towards them, he was so frightened that he cried out loud. No matter how scared they were eventually taken away together with Madame Lu. When the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and Xinying arrived, they saw Mrs. Lu, who was ashen as ashes, and the two young ladies of the Lu family, who were so frightened that they peed their pants, and were splinted by Sun Che. Xinying's legs went weak and she knelt on the ground. "Mom, Mother, what should I do? Do you think Fan Qinjiao will take me away too?" The eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Wei, also had cold limbs. She gritted her teeth and pulled her daughter up. "Don't worry, I have other ways." Mrs. Lu and her two young ladies were imprisoned. Mrs. Lu's wife received 15 blows, and half of her life was lost. Although the two ladies of the Lu family only received 3 blows each, their reputations were completely ruined. From now on, no one will dare to marry a daughter of the Lu family. Soon, the matter of the Lu family was spread throughout the city. In the Yuya palace, concubine Yu handed a bowl of clear fire old duck soup to Emperor Yongchang. "I heard that the Lu family's wife and the two young ladies were beaten for this. I want to say that it was just a mistake in the daughter's family." "Why, it was so serious?" Emperor Yongchang took the old duck soup and tasted it carefully. "You have been concerned about the affairs of the main city recently." Concubine Yu's eyes turned red with grievance. Isn't this concubine always thinking about the emperor? Then imperial physician Lu is still responsible for taking care of the emperor's medicinal diet. What if I am distracted by this and delay the emperor's health? After concubine Yu said this, Emperor Yongchang's face darkened. The Hua family is becoming more and more courageous, and even the people around him dare to treat him like this. Is this a slap in the face of the Lu family? It's still his face. Seeing the emperor's face darken, concubine Yu stopped. After burning the incense, Emperor Yongchang returned to the imperial study and called his confidants in front of him. Now give the order to Lao Qi to resolve the war on Huaishang as soon as possible. The Hua family will be eradicated and no one will be left alive. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 197. Chapter 197 The Person Who Gives Hope. East Palace. Bailey Fengming was looking at the remaining game on the chessboard in front of him, his deep black eyes flashing with a brilliance that made it difficult to see through. After listening to the secret guard's report, he asked an irrelevant question, "Do you know where my father went before returning to the imperial study?" The secret guard was stunned for a moment and then said, "There is news from the imperial court. I heard that the emperor went to Yue Palace for dinner tonight. The reason why the father sent the henchmen of Yulong army to Huaishang at this time is obvious. I'm afraid someone is making a fuss about the Lu family's affairs again." Bailey Fengming's eyebrows gradually raised, and in a quiet voice, no one could hear the joy or anger, "Find a way to delay the people who control the dragon army." The secret guard was silent and suspicious. Even if there is a delay, the people of the Yulong army will arrive at Huaishang sooner or later. To put it bluntly, this is simply treating the symptoms rather than the root cause. It's not important that the people of the Yulong army arrived at Huaishang. The most important thing is that no one can receive the father's order to kill the Hua family, Bailey Fengming said, and dropped by Zi, who had been holding on to his right hand. Originally, White had the upper hand, but he blocked only one black stone and turned the situation around. "Hey Zi, you will lose everything." The mansion in the western suburbs. In the quiet room, the smile was drowsy. Ningan reported in a low voice, "Miss, I heard that the eldest aunt closed the door as soon as she came back with the eldest lady. I'm afraid she was very frightened by what happened to the Lu family today. That day in the prison, Aunt Zheng told her everything. The reason why Xiao Yan had a conflict with the two sisters from the Lu family was because she heard the two sisters from the Lu family saying that she was a lowly person who was even worse than a prostitute in a brothel. Hearing what Aunt Zheng said, Smile rushed over to defend her, and even raised her voice, "My third sister is upright and proud, how can I allow you two sour ladies who have never seen the market to mess with her?" The two sisters of the Lu family are used to being arrogant and indulgent, so they are naturally entangled with Smiles. But the person who really pushed the Smile to fall into the water was Xinying. Fan Qingjao quietly left the secret in order to fish out the person who was hiding behind his eldest aunt and making plans. That's why she asked her eldest aunt to take Xinying to see the miserable situation of the Lu family with her own eyes today. Only when people are desperate will they desperately seek help. And when the truth comes out, she will definitely leave no one behind, whether it is her eldest aunt or Xinying. Tell the maid who is staring at my eldest sister-in-law to follow her more carefully and closely during this period. Ningan nodded and then retreated. Fan Qingjao walked back to the bed, pulled out the last silver needle on his chest, lowered his eyes and looked at the smiling face. "Second sister, you must wake up quickly, so that you can reunite with your uncles." As he finished speaking, the candlelight on the table suddenly flickered. The flickering candlelight illuminated Fan Qingjiao's thin figure, as well as the murderous aura that enveloped him at the moment. Main camp in Ziliang, Huaishang. All the grain and grass transported from the main city of Ziliang were put into the camp, and no grain was lost. But there was not even a trace of laughter in the main camp. In the main tent, everyone was holding their breath and concentrating. Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, was stabbed through the chest by a Xianbei general, and his blood had already stained the bed beneath him. The old military doctor stroked his white beard, then stood up and said to the other young men, "Although the knife did not hurt the heart, it still hurt the heart. If we were in the main city, there would be hope for salvation, yeah, Now I'm just afraid. The army was already short of medicinal herbs, and all the precious medicinal materials this time had already been used to make nourishing medicinal diets for the seventh prince. When the men of the Hua family heard this, they immediately tensed up and gritted their teeth. The Hua family's family rules do not allow them to have affectionate relationships on the battlefield. But how could they stay calm while watching the elder brother lying on the bed with all his blood draining out? The only lieutenant left in the main camp, together with the few thousand elite soldiers, knelt on the ground after hearing this. If the Hua family men hadn't led them out of the encirclement today, I'm afraid they would have become the dead souls of Xianbei. Thinking of the Hua family man's ironclad demeanor and support, even in the face of tens of thousands of Xianbei soldiers, he still rushed to the front without flinching and supported him. Who can really remain indifferent? The soldiers kneeling on the ground wiped their tears with their sleeves and gnashed their teeth angrily, cursing that God has no eyes. Tianyu, who was hiding in the corner, was already crying. I can save you. A hoarse daughter's voice sounded outside the main camp tent. Everyone turned around in shock and saw a young girl hurriedly entering the camp. As if in a hurry, she didn't have time to look around, and rushed straight to the bed, opened the small porcelain bottle in her hand, and poured all the black powder inside onto the wound of Huagu, the boss of the Hua family. There was complete silence in the main camp tent. Everyone looked at the little figure and was so surprised that they were stunned. Who is this? Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, looked at the tear-soaked but firm-eyed face. He was stunned for a moment, then frowned and angrily said, "Didn't I say that you can't come out no matter what? You forgot the rules of the Hua family." The family rules of the Hua family have indeed taught me that I must listen to the elders' teachings, and obey the elders' responsibilities, but the third sister has taught me that the sky is strong, and women must strive for self-improvement. The terrain is good, and women must be virtuous. Loading things. Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, felt sad when he heard this, and tears welled up in his eyes. Well, this is the daughter of the Hua family, who is constantly striving for self-improvement and unyielding. The old military doctor standing aside looked at the blood that had solidified on the chest of Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, and was shocked when he touched the powder that had not completely dissolved into the wound. Take a sip lightly, then smell carefully. Ice arrow frost. Just a small amount of ice arrow frost can instantly coagulate the blood and prevent death from massive hemorrhage. It's just that the preparation of this kind of medicinal powder is particularly complicated and cumbersome. A total of 99 and 81 medicines are prepared. If the dosage of one medicine is wrong, even if it is just a penny, all the efforts will be wasted. I wonder where you got this medicine. The old military doctor's trembling voice was full of excitement and expectation. This kind of medicine is probably not even available in the warehouse of the Imperial Palace Hospital. My third sisters, Tianyu raised his chin proudly. The third tip bag given to her by the third sister is the biggest among all the tips. That's why she kept it in her arms. She was also startled when she just opened it. The old military doctor didn't notice Tianyu's pride. He just lowered his eyes and looked at the ice arrows that had been sprinkled on the bed. His heart ached with pain. This is... what a waste. Hua, the fourth son of the Hua family, looked at the familiar figure and couldn't believe his eyes. After a long while, he finally called out, Heavenly mandate, is it the heavenly mandate?" Tianyu's body is tense when his back is to everyone. Taking a deep breath, she turned around and smiled with tears in her eyes, "Father." Hua, the fourth son of the Hua family, had his throat rolling. He stared at his daughter blankly for a long time. Suddenly he took a few steps forward and slapped Tianyu. Snapped. Half of Tianyu's face was immediately red and swollen. Absurd. How can you be allowed to come just as you say on the battlefield? Have you ever thought about the consequences? Hua, the fourth son of the Hua family, squeezed the hand that hid his daughter's face, trembling all over. Tianyu's cheeks were burning with pain, and even when she spoke, her speech was a little slurred, but she still raised her head stubbornly, looked at her father and said, "The third sister said that there is no fundamental difference between daughters and men. If you despise yourself, others will look down on you. I don't want others to look down on you, and I want my father and uncles to return home safely." As Tianyu said this, he grabbed a lot of small porcelain bottles from his arms. The old military doctor came over in confusion, took one out casually, opened it and smelled it. He was so shocked that he was stunned. This is. As if he couldn't believe it, he opened several other porcelain bottles one after another, and then, even more shocked. Plateau ginseng strengthens the body, andrographis paniculata replenishes blood, snowdrop removes blood stasis, and Tripterygium wilfordi can repair broken bones. If these things were in the bustling main city, they might not be that valuable, but for the current military camp where medicine is scarce, these medicinal materials are simply more precious than rare treasures. This is simply a life-saving medicine. The old military doctor shouted with tears streaming down his face, "The soldiers can be saved. This time they are really saved. How can the soldiers present be fools? If this girl is the fourth young lady of the Hua family, then the third sister in her mouth. Isn't she the young lady of the Hua family?" For a time, the soldiers' eyes filled with tears and their hearts surged. The battlefield is like a battlefield. Even men are reluctant to step on it, let alone delicate daughters. But now the fourth lady of the Hua family risked her life to arrive and bring them life-saving medicine. And all of this. They are all arranged by the young lady from the Hua family. Looking at the small porcelain vase, which was regarded as a treasure by the old military doctor, the soldiers burst into tears. A person who gave them hope of living, but they couldn't even express basic gratitude. If they can really return in triumph this time, they will definitely kneel down and worship the young lady of the Hua family in person. Fan Kinjao. For a time, all the soldiers in the main camp had these three words firmly engraved in their hearts. Hua, the fourth son of the Hua family, looked at his daughter who refused to give in front of him, looked at the small medicine bottles scattered on the ground, and couldn't help but step forward, hugging Tianyu tightly to his body. In the embrace, several other boys in the Hua family closed their eyes in tears. Just thinking about the person who pulled their sleeves and called them uncle with a smile even though their heads were bleeding. Even if they closed their eyes tightly, tears were still rushing out. Report. A soldier guarding the camp came in a hurry and reported in a hurry, Xian Bei just sent someone to deliver a letter of reconciliation. Hua Yi, the third eldest son of the Hua family, took the reconciliation letter from the soldier, opened it and looked at it, and instantly froze up. This is. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 198. Chapter 198. The Hua family will definitely die. Terms. In the main tent, someone screamed in surprise, and everyone looked at Hua Yi, the third eldest son of the Hua family. The so-called terms are nothing more than a hegemonic treaty proposed by the victorious country to the defeated country during the war. Just like now, Xian Bei's terms list the cession of no fewer than 10 cities and a tribute of up to 50 years. That's absolutely ridiculous. The only remaining lieutenant looked at the terms that were completely in favor of Xian Bei, and immediately snorted coldly, "In this battle at Huaishang, the Xian Bei people didn't get any benefits, and now they still want us to sign such terms. It's simply a shameless move." The men of the Hua family looked at the letter with serious expressions on their faces. In the battle on the dangerous Tiger Road, Xian Bei was indeed the loser in the overall situation, but they could not ignore the one that Xian Bei was holding now. Report, there is something strange at the gate of Huaishang City. Outside the main camp tent, the news of the arrival of soldiers sounded again. The men of the Hua family looked at each other and hurriedly walked towards the entrance of the main camp. Before leaving, Hua, the fourth son of the Hua family, grabbed Tianyu and told him, "Be good and stay with your uncle here. We will come as soon as we go." Tianyu nodded, but his eyes were always following his father's back. Her hands, subconsciously, clenched the clothes on her chest tightly, and the thing inside them made her palms turn white. Tianyu didn't mention it to anyone. In fact, she didn't take out all the medicine bottles given by the third sister. She never said anything about the words in the third sister's last bag. It's not that she didn't have time to say it, it's that she didn't dare. When he thought of the words on the note again, Tianyu's face gradually lost color. She could only comfort herself over and over again, it must be the third sister who wrote it wrong, it must be. The third sister will never kill the uncles. Fan Zhao, who was standing aside, looked at Tianyu who was trembling all over, and his eyes gradually dimmed. In this battle on Huaishang, the master can be said to have exhausted all his mechanisms and worked hard at every step. And if everything cannot escape the master's plan, then someone will soon bring an end to this war. At the gate of Huaishang, the torches held high by the Xianbei soldiers illuminated half of the sky. It is precisely because of this that the people standing at the entrance of the main camp in Ziliang can clearly see the Huaishang people on the Huaishang wall who are being forced to kneel on the ground by Xianbei soldiers and unable to struggle. This has been an unknown number of batches of innocent people massacred by Xianbei. Perhaps they know that death is waiting for them, and now they are even more frightened and trembling. "Save us, please save us, we don't want to die." The seventh prince is also imprisoned in a water prison. Even if you don't save us, you still want to save the seventh prince. The Xianbei people said that as long as you sign the terms, they will let us and the seventh prince go. The people kneeling on the city wall were trembling and pleading helplessly with eyes red from crying. But they had just finished speaking, when Wen Huai came up to the city wall and gave an order, "Kill." In an instant, these innocent people were pushed down the Huaishang city gate one by the Xianbei soldiers like dumplings. At this moment, under the city gate of Huaishang, there is a trap full of barbs that Xianbei has dug long ago. The people who fell down the city wall didn't even have time to shout, but there was no sound anymore. The tragic ending can be imagined even without seeing it with one's own eyes. In front of the main camp in Ziliang, the men of the Hua family, together with the few remaining soldiers, clenched their hands and tensed their bodies. But even though each of them gritted their teeth, their eyes could not stop glowing red. When did the people of Ziliang get to be so wanton like Xianbei? In the main city of Huaishang. In the damp and dark water prison, a Ziliang lieutenant was with his limbs and hung in mid-air. At his feet, there were waves of biting cold water rising up one after another. The ruthless cold water kept flooding Bailey's limbs and chest. Until it completely swallows him up, the cold water will slowly recede and then continue to rise. Over and over again, without end. Lu Gan, who was outside the water prison, admired it for a moment, then turned to the soldiers beside him and said, "Spread the news and say that the seventh prince of Ziliang cannot withstand the torture of the water prison, and he may die soon." The soldier nodded and took the order to leave. Lu Gan then asked the soldiers to several people from Huaishang city. He pointed at the deputy general but lied that he was the seventh prince. He even let these people see with their own eyes how the deputy general was swallowed up by cold water over and over again. Then he asked the soldiers to take the people away, drag them collectively to the gate of Huaishang city, and kill them. With everything arranged properly, Lu Gan was released from the water prison. In the superior room of a restaurant in the main city of Huaishang, Bailey Luji, who was supposed to be tortured in a water prison, was sitting in the room eating and drinking. There was no torture around him, just beautiful women drinking wine, beans, and meat. Lu Gan pushed the door open and walked in, looking at Bailey Luoji with a half smile but not a smile. "The news has been released, and now the Hua family has the right to think that it is His Highness the seventh Prince of Ziliang who is being tortured in the water prison, but I am very curious, if let the Hua family know that His Highness the Seventh Prince, whom they have been thinking about, is now planning to divide their land like this. I don't know how he feels about it." Hearing this, Bailey Luoji squeezed the shoulders of the woman in his arms. "Ah!" the woman screamed in pain. Bailey Luoji just looked at Lu Gan, who was sitting opposite him, with burning eyes. "I warn you, Xianbei traitor, don't get carried away. My acting for you is just an agreement between you and me. As long as the Hua family signs the terms, just let me leave safely. I am the seventh prince of Ziliang. How can I collude with you, the Xianbei traitor? It's not like he has never been to the water prison before. It was precisely because he was thrown into the water prison by Lu Gan after he was captured and could not bear the pain of the water prison that he agreed to act with Lu Gan and came up with such a painful plan himself. Let alone Ziliang carve out a few cities for him, even if they carve out hundreds or thousands of cities, that's what they should do. Who told him to be born as the seventh prince of Ziliang? Who calls him the most beloved son of his father?" Lu Gan didn't make a sound in the face of Bailey Luoji's contempt. He just smiled and said, "Your Highness the seventh prince of Ziliang does not need to be so angry. I also hope that this matter can be resolved peacefully with Ziliang. It's just that I saw those people from the Hua family men are all upright people, so I'm afraid they won't agree to Xianbei's terms so easily." Bailey Luoji dismissed Lu Gan's words, and his gloomy eyes were even more sarcastic. "The Hua family is just a watchdog raised by us in Ziliang. If I say go east, they dare not go west. Agreed to Lu Gan's terms, one is to save one's life, and the other is to be able to get rid of those flowery dogs in an honest way. As long as Xianbei lets him out, he can directly blame everything on the Dea Hua family. With one without permission, those people in Huajia are more than to die. In this way, not only will these Huajia men die in Huaishang, but also the Huajia in the main city will become a shame to Ziliang. So Huajia, he will be completely despised by the people of Ziliang. What kind of century-old general, what kind of war in the hearts of Ziliang people? Everything will become a source of infamy that will make the Hua family never recover." Lu Gan looked at the viciousness flashing in Bailey Luoji's eyes and calmly squinted his eyes. The seventh prince of Ziliang dared to be so contemptuous. It must be that the emperor of Ziliang was already wary of the Hua family, and even had murderous intentions. After all, the Hua family is the strongest opponent he has ever encountered in many years of fighting. It is a pity that such a general and tiger son was not born in Xianbei. It is a pity that such a brave and loyal general eventually fell victim to royal suspicion. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 199. Chapter 199. The last words in the bag. In the main tent of Ziliang, the men of the Hua family looked at the extremely humiliating terms for Ziliang with solemn expressions. The only lieutenant stood aside silently. The people who were pushed down the city gate just now kept saying that His Highness the Seventh Prince was in a water prison. This shows that those people saw His Majesty the Seventh Highness. It is true that the water prison is damp and dark, but the most important thing is that no one can be sure that the water in the water prison is really clean. If the Xianbei people added some chronic poison to it, I am afraid that the Seventh Prince will really. The Deputy General raised his eyes anxiously and looked at the straight figures surrounding the bed. He wanted to say something, but in the end he gritted his teeth. Nowadays, the royal family is suppressing the Hua family in various ways. Even General Hua is still exiled and cannot return to the main city. Thinking again of all the contempt and embarrassment his seventh prince has shown to the Hua family, the lieutenant general knew that even if the men of the Flower family gave up on His Highness now, it would be reasonable. After all, once a Hua family man signs the terms, he will be a sinner in Ziliang, a stain that the Hua family will never be able to lift up. We are all people who have been fighting on the battlefield for half their lives. Who wants to have an indelible mark on their bodies that is stained by others? No matter how despicable Xianbei is, he will never kill His Highness the Seventh Prince before getting the signed terms. As long as we make sufficient preparations beforehand, there will definitely be hope for a fight. In the silence of the main tent, the first person to speak was Hua Yi, the third child of the Hua family. Immediately afterwards, Hua Jun, the second eldest son of the Hua family, also agreed. All of Xianbei's ambitions are clearly written in this clause, and we only need to grasp this clause to grasp Xianbei's weakness. The third brother is right, there is indeed a chance to give it a try. The fourth son of the Hua family opened the booklet in his hand. There are still 3,000 elite soldiers and 2,000 wounded soldiers left in the main camp. The spies have just come to report that Xianbei also suffered a heavy loss of troops after the battle on the dangerous Tiger Road. Now it is estimated that it is around a few thousand. Only those institutions inside and outside Huaishang are easy to defend and difficult to attack. If we can rush in, we will have a greater chance of winning. Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, who was lying on the bed, coughed heavily before speaking hoarsely. Lu Gan is suspicious and cunning. If we go together, it will definitely arouse his suspicion. Tomorrow I will do it openly, go to the main city of Huaishang alone. Xianbei's attention will definitely be on me by then. You take the opportunity to lead troops into the city in different directions, respond in secret, and be prepared to face death. Hearing this, several men from the Hua family nodded firmly. The deputy general, who was still standing aside, said, "It always feels like it's like a dream." It turns out that the silence of the men of the Hua family was not weighing the pros and cons, but planning how to rescue the seventh prince. Do you know, Major Generals, what will happen if we, Ziliang, are really defeated in Huaishang city tomorrow? The lieutenant general suppressed the trembling in his heart and asked softly. Hua Yi, the third eldest son of the Hua family, just smiled and said, "The worst case is death. If we really lose, the eldest brother will sign the terms before his death. In this way, no matter how much Lu Gan wants to eradicate the roots, he will still let his seventh prince leave safely." Hua, the fourth eldest son of the Hua family, said. "Unless Xianbei doesn't want everything on the terms, Bailey Luji must be let go." The deputy general of Huajia's throat was sore and his heart was blocked. The old general of the Hua family is upright and can inspire people's courage. Unexpectedly, the men of the Hua family have continued the loyalty, uprightness, and righteousness of the Hua family. This battle seems to be a sure win, but in fact, what is the difference between facing death? But even though they knew they were going to die, none of the men in the Hua family trembled in fear, and at the last moment they even planned how to protect the seventh highness. The Hua family's loyalty to Ziliang can be witnessed by heaven and earth, as well as by the sun and moon. How could the emperor have the heart to treat such a loyal general like this? Cough cough cough, cough cough cough. Accompanied by bursts of muffled coughs, Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, slowly sat up with the support of several younger brothers, dragging his body still soaked with blood, and walked towards the master step by step with heavy but firm steps. Walking to the camp entrance. At this time, all the soldiers were standing silently outside the main camp tent, waiting for orders. The moment everyone saw the men of the Hua family, they were all cheered up. Huagu, the boss of the Hua family, held his chest in pain, looked at the soldiers in front of him, and said with all his strength, "Bathing on the battlefield, sleeping on the ice and tasting the snow, running thousands of miles, and going through fire and water is the duty of our soldiers. It is our duty as soldiers to be loyal to the emperor. It is our mission to defend our country. Now that Xianbei troops are approaching, you are willing to sacrifice your lives to fight for the country. I know your hard work and your reluctance to give up. But the country cannot live without a king, and all the princes in Ziliang are like this. The hope for the future lies, so I, Huagu, today urge all warriors to rush into the main city of Huaishang with me tomorrow, seize my city, and save my highness. If we win, my Hua family will celebrate with the soldiers. If we lose, Quan shall be my Hua family owes you the lives of all the soldiers. If there is an afterlife, my Hua family's men will definitely repay it as cows and horses. The soldiers present heard this with high morale and tears in their eyes. Since they are soldiers of Ziliang, they have the obligation to defend their home and country for Ziliang. Major General Huajia said it right, this is their responsibility and even their mission. In an instant, all the soldiers fell to their knees. They shouted for the Hua family, and they were even more willing to advance and retreat with the Hua family. The lieutenant general looked at the soldiers who were kneeling down to pay homage to the young men. He felt sad and excited at the same time. One person's argument is better than 9 tripods of treasure, and a 3-inch tongue is stronger than 1,000,000 soldiers. Win the battlefield and win the hearts of the people. This is the power of Huajia. It was Tianyu who was bandaging the injury with the old military doctor. Hearing these words, he dropped the soft cloth in his hand. She rushed to the main tent in disbelief, grabbed her father and screamed like crazy, "Don't you know, father and uncles, how ridiculous the imperial power of Ziliang is? But how cruel the imperial power of Ziliang is, we the female members of the Hua family have suffered it personally, and now the Hua family is willing to sacrifice their lives for the prince who does not regard our Hua family as a human being. Father, tell me why." Tianyu collapsed and cried loudly, roaring heartbreakingly. It was obviously a disrespectful thing to say, but no one among the soldiers present said anything. They know how the Hua family treats Ziliang. How the royal family treats the Hua family, they know better. That's why they are so moved at this moment, and are more willing to follow the flower boy to death together. Hua, the 4th son of the Hua family, raised his hand and gently stroked the top of his daughter's hair. There was a rare trace of kindness on his tough face. "When we were young, your grandfather taught us that in life, we must keep our words and be a good person. With our heads above the sky and our feet on the ground, the Hua family is full of loyal people. We live to protect Ziliang and die to protect the imperial power. This is the duty and responsibility of our Hua family." Tianyu cried so hard that his heart broke, and he shook his head like crazy. What happened to the Hua family? Does a person with a high status deserve to die for this ridiculous imperial power? However, the 4th child of the Hua family no longer looked at Tianyu, but raised his head and said to the soldiers below, "Those who are seriously injured do not need to participate in the operation to the main city of Huaishang tomorrow. Before dawn tomorrow, you will go first with the 4th lady of the Hua family. Evacuate the main camp and head to the main city." "I don't want to leave, father, I don't want to leave, let me stay, please, please." Tianyu cried and struggled, but soldiers gradually filled up in front of him. Hua Wu, the 4th child of the Hua family, gritted his teeth and returned directly to the main tent. Hua Yi, the 3rd child of the Hua family, couldn't bear Tianyu's crying look, so he walked over and said softly, "Tianyu, dear, these wounded soldiers need someone to take care of them along the way. You have been studying medicine with your grandmother since you were a child. At this time, you bear to see those soldiers who defend the country and fight for the people die of serious injuries? In the past, the heavenly edict would not be able to listen to anything. But this trip to Huaishang made her understand what the overall situation is and what tolerance is. She looked at the soldiers behind her who had lost their arms and even 2 legs with blurry eyes, and finally nodded with tears in her eyes. The 3rd sister said that no one can graft selfishness onto the suffering of innocent people. Assessing the situation and taking into account the overall situation is the best way to go. Hua Yi, the 3rd child of the Hua family, smiled and wiped away the tears from the corners of Tianyu's eyes. But just when he wanted to take back his hand, Tianyu grabbed his hand tightly and stuffed the last porcelain bottle given by the 3rd sister together with the note. into the hands of Sanbo. Tianyu pretended to be reluctant and threw herself into third uncle's arms, but she lowered her voice and said, "When I came here, third sister gave me 3 kits. This is the contents of the last kit. I hope that third uncle will keep it." After Tianyu finished speaking, he wiped away his tears and turned around and walked towards the wounded soldiers. Hua Yi, the third child of the Hua family, opened his hand in confusion and happened to see the words on the note. Die. The pupils of Hua Yi, the third eldest child of the Hua family, trembled. This is. Standing in the corner, Fan Zhao saw Tianyu approaching and wanted to greet him, but a gust of wind blew behind him. Fan Zhao turned around alertly, but there was nothing behind him. Unexpectedly, when he turned around, there would be an extra note in his hand. Fan Zhao glanced at Tianyu, who was comforting the wounded soldiers, and then quickly opened the note in his hand. The note contained not only a line of words, but also a letter. When Fan Zhao saw that line of writing, even though he was prepared, he was still shocked. Unexpectedly, the master finally decided to take action. Fan Zhao calmly put the letter into his arms and turned around to leave while others were unprepared. At this time, Xiao Xian, who was standing in the dark, looked at Fan Zhao's disappearing figure and said to Lin Yizi beside him, "I'm afraid that the weather in Ziliang will change soon." Lin Yi didn't know why. "What do you mean?" Xiao Xian shook his head, his heart trembling for a long time and unable to calm down. He had always known that Miss Kinjao was brave and resourceful, but he never expected that she was so courageous. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinqi. Chapter 200. Chapter 200 Fan Zhao's whereabouts. In the main city of Huaishang, Bailey Luji, who was full of wine and food, was escorted by several guards and walked upstairs. These guards are all Lugan's confidants, and they know that the deputy general currently imprisoned in the water prison is the 7th prince of Ziliang. Just now, the lieutenant general, who was obviously more angry than others, threatened to warn them not to harm His Highness the 7th prince. Unknown to him, it was the 7th prince whom he wholeheartedly protected who proposed to replace plums with peaches and throw him into a water prison to be tortured. At the moment, looking at Bailey Luji who was burping with wine, the guards felt extremely disgusted. Boom! Suddenly he punched one of the guards in the face. The other guards looked at Bailey Luoji's arm raised in the air and drew their swords in defense. Bailey Luoji, on the other hand, was full of sarcasm and spit at the guard who fell on the ground. "Who are you? How dare you be dissatisfied with me? You must remember it well. If I don't give advice, you Xianbei, even if you die, you won't be able to get the city of Ziliang. The only reason to blame is that your highness' life is too valuable, but you, Xianbei, have taken advantage of it." As Bailey Luoji spoke, he stepped on the guard's chest and opened the door in a big way. When the other guards saw this, they drew their swords and stepped forward. The guard who fell on the ground quickly stretched out his hand to stop him. "Forget it, your highness, the third highness, told me that this person must be alive." The other guards watched the door close in front of their eyes and lowered their arms unwillingly. The guard who fell on the ground stood up holding his sore chest, and then said again, "Compared to us, the flower families in Ziliang are the most unlucky, and they have to risk their lives for such a selfish royal family. Carry the stain on your back. Okay, you all should take good care of it, and remember not to let His Highness the 7th Prince of Ziliang get hurt." It was Bailey Luoji who was standing in the room and raised his lips mockingly when he heard this. Just a watchdog of Ziliang, it is the Hua family's greatest honor to have the opportunity to serve their royal family. How can a mere flower family be compared with their royal family? Bailey Luoji's eyes suddenly flashed with a sinister look. When he returns, he will definitely tell his father personally to turn all the female members of the Hua family who are still in the main city into prostitutes. A strange breath suddenly entered Bailey Luoji's breath. His whole body suddenly tensed up and he subconsciously turned around. Unexpectedly, a sharp dagger was pressed against his neck one step ahead. "Stop talking, or I'll kill you right now," a rough male voice rang in his ears. Bailey Luigi carefully lowered his eyes and scanned the cold light on his neck. He felt that the person behind him was forcing him to retreat step by step towards the back room, so he could only follow his footsteps and retreat into the back room. When they reached the back room, Bailey Luigi spoke again. "Do you know who I am? If you kill me, no matter who you are, you will sacrifice your whole family to be buried with me. Don't compare me with the soldiers who serve you in Ziliang. My master is not that kind." Fan Zhao clenched the dagger in his hand, with murderous intent in his eyes. He heard from Lu Gan during the day that the seventh prince was imprisoned in a water prison, so when he lurked into the main city of Huaishang, he groped for the direction of the water prison. Result: he just saw the lieutenant who was exchanged for the prince by a civet cat and was tortured in the water prison. He even heard with his own ears the disgusting affair between Lu Gan and Bailey Luoji. The dignified seventh prince of Ziliang actually colluded with the enemy's third highness to save his own life, and did not hesitate to cede land and pay tribute. This even caused the Hua family to bear a stain that could never be erased. Thinking about the deputy general who was unconscious in the water prison and kept warning the Xianbei soldiers not to touch the seventh prince. Thinking about the handsome man in the main camp who, in order to save the seventh prince, kept going even though he knew it was a dead end. Fan Zhao wished he could just wipe the edge of his neck with the blade to relieve his hatred. "Who is your master?" Bailey Luoji asked cautiously after noticing Fan Zhao's murderous intention behind him. In fact, his eyes began to closely observe every part of the house. Hearing this, Fan Zhao tightened his grip on the letter in his sleeve. "There is what the master wrote to the seventh prince." Just when Fan Zhao was thinking whether to give it now or wait a while, Bailey Luoji suddenly dodged away from the sharp dagger and stepped aside. Since Fan Zhao came under orders, it was impossible for him to let Bailey Luoji go. Seeing Bailey Luoji trying to escape toward the door, he flew forward and grabbed Bailey Luoji's shoulders. The people of Ziliang admired medical skills, and successive emperors even pursued medical skills to a state of obsession. I remember that when Emperor Jiaozu of Ziliang was still alive, he heard a miracle doctor say that practicing martial arts can strengthen the body and strengthen youth, making people look radiant. From then on, the princes in the palace were required to practice martial arts from an early age. Over time, this habit was continued in the royal family. Emperor Yongchang specially set up the post of general of the martial arts school in the court, which was Mr. Wu, who specialized in teaching martial arts to his disciples. Fan Zhao's kung fu is quite good, but all Bailey Luoji used were underhanded moves. Furthermore, Fan Qinjiao had made instructions in advance that Bailey Luoji's life must not be harmed by external force. Although Fan Zhao could not understand the mystery, he still remembered his master's instructions, so after several rounds, he did not get any advantage from Bailey Luoji. On the contrary, Bailey Luoji kept throwing out various hidden weapons from his sleeves, and Fan Zhao was injured and covered in blood. Bailey Luoji only thought that Fan Zhao was nothing more than that, and simply stopped running towards the door. Instead, he raised his arms and rushed towards Fan Zhao again. "You want to hurt my highness with this little ability? You must have said that that master is also a fool, so he would use a piece of trash like you." Fan Zhao has been traveling in the world for many years and no longer cares about others' evaluations of himself. But the master he followed was by no means a fool, as the selfish royal family said. In an instant, Fan Zhao was furious and faced the oncoming Bailey Luoji head-on. "My master is not a fool. My master is someone even your royal family can't compare to." Fan Zhao stared at Bailey Luoji in front of him and gritted his teeth. Bailey Luoji looked at the anger in Fan Zhao's eyes, and his thoughts turned around, so he continued to sneer. "How can you compare with our royal family when you are just a rat who dare not even show your face? I guess your master is just a greedy and fearful person, just dead ants." Fan Zhao suppressed the murderous intention in his heart. I'm warning you, don't slander my master. Bailey Luoji smiled disdainfully. Are you so protective of your master? Could it be that he is a woman? Is he a man riding thousands of horses? When Fan Zhao heard this, the veins on the back of his hands bulged. The master of his family is smart, steady, benevolent, and righteous. Carrying the crumbling family on the top, and supporting the whole family of women and sisters below. In this cruel and selfish world, I am afraid that I will never find another person like his master. Even people like them who are wandering around the world are people who need to be respected and respected. How can this selfish and vicious despicable person in front of him be able to slander him? Fan Zhao couldn't stop being angry. He had been dodging and suddenly launched a counter-attack towards Bailey Luoji. Bailey Luoji never expected that Fan Zhao could reach out so well. He couldn't resist him at all, but he was forced into a corner by Fan Zhao in just 3 moves. Seeing that Bailey Luoji was no longer able to fight back, Fan Zhao directly raised his scimitar. Do not leave any external injuries on his body, remember. Suddenly, Fan Qingjiao's advice suddenly rang in his heart. In an instant, all Fan Zhao's rationality returned, and the scimitar in his hand paused in mid-air. Bailey Luoji took advantage of this and smiled sinisterly, whipped out a dagger from his sleeve, and pierced Fan Zhao's heart. Blood spattered, staining Bailey Luoji's sinister and cunning face red. There was another sound of a sharp blade slicing flesh. Bailey Luoji took out the dagger that was stuck on Fan Zhao's chest again. The dagger covered with barbs directly poked a hole in Fan Zhao's chest. Fan Zhao felt his eyes go dark, and he couldn't help but fell hard to the ground. End of this chapter.